What is going on, guys? I want to give you a quick insight into a Sunday morning process for me. Or, well, today's Saturday because Saturdays are for The Sims. So I just thought that I would come in here into the solver and show you how I use it. Both The Sims, both the optimizer, entries manager, boosting players. I mean, you name it. Kind of just giving you a quick rundown of what it's going to look like as I build lineups. I think just specifically for this, I'm going to build some lineups for some of these qualifiers and some of the saddies. Those are fields ranging anywhere from like 100 man to at the most 1,000. I think it's like 700 something people. So we'll take a quick dive into the Sims. We'll use Optimizer. We'll go from there. So let's jump in. As you can see, I've already made some adjustments here. I've got my custom settings here for this specific build of lineups for these queues. I've boosted some teams, just like overall the entire teams in Detroit, Jacksonville, Minnesota, Miami, Buffalo, both Minnesota and the Chargers. These are all great spots. Shout out to the friends over at ETR who have put together like a game score, and a couple of these rate well in their game score. I also, wouldn't mind getting a little bit into KC, pretty difficult. Detroit at home in a dome against Atlanta, you name it. But if you don't like Detroit, don't boost Detroit. If you want to dock the Saints, right? So this is just some of that I know better and manually boosting some of these teams. You can then even go into the players and it's like, okay, I like Jacksonville and I like the Cleveland side of the ball here against a pass funnel, but maybe I really just want to target the Cleveland receivers and not necessarily the tight end. So we can go find Amari and Elijah Moore and maybe just boost them a little bit more than Peoples-Jones or Marquise Goodwin. Probably just remove players like these out of your pool. It's not like you're going to get any anyways, but maybe you will if you're doing like 300 lineups or 1,000 lineups and then simming and pulling from there. They could certainly end up in, but in these smaller field stuff, they definitely won't come in just based off how we're building and optimizing. You'll notice here under my advanced options, I've got a bunch of different stuff too. I've set variance by position here, and that correlates to what I have set here for default. So back underneath there, you'll also notice I've got some rules. I've got more rules that I need to make, but basically I was playing around with a set in these builds that if these lineups do not contain Kirk Cousins, then I want to boost Alexander Madison's projection. If Kirk and the receivers don't get there, it could be because Madison falls in twice and has, 100 yards on the ground, gets the bonus, stuff like that. So if lineup contains any Kirk Cousins, then I don't want to use any Alexander Madison. I would say that's way more for large field stuff. So I'm actually going to remove that rule. I'm not necessarily looking to force Madison in this small set of lineups, so I'm going to remove this. But in the small field, I do want a little bit more of an onslaught. I think in larger field, you could just do Kirk and, Justin Jefferson, or Kirk and just Hawk. But in smaller field stuff, especially 100-man, I want at least I want the onslaught. If I'm going to play this chalk, give me the onslaught, because Addison, Osborne, and Hawk, I think, are a great way to keep your total product, or to keep your product ownership down on your lineup. So I definitely want at least 2. So I'm sure I'll get a ton of Justin Jefferson, but I absolutely want to run it back with one of those other pass catchers. So just a quick example of some rules, and I will create a lot more rules. I just want to keep it short and sweet. In this, I'm already 2 minutes into rules and I only have a few here. So let's make 25 lineups here just to kind of give me an overall view based off some of these inputs that I've made with those rules. And let's optimize. Now, this isn't going to force Kirk. As you'll see, we may not get any Kirk. Wow, we're still getting a decent amount of Madison here. Let me sort by quarterback. Okay, yeah, so we got some Kirk in these 25. T-Law, Justin Herbert, Deshaun Watson. So let's take a look at these. Oh, I guess I should have shown you this in the advanced setting too under stacks. I do have stacks and run backs being forced. I also am saying like at most 2 running back, wide receiver, tight end from the same team. I think in the smaller field stuff, 100-man stuff, like it's totally fine to onslaught. So I would be good with Kirk, Justin Jefferson, KJ Osborne, and Addison plus Williams and Keenan, or Keenan and another pass-catching wide receiver from the Chargers, right? So in smaller field stuff, I think that's fine. That's what I'm saying. At most 2 from the same team. Normally, this would just be 1 because I don't want 2 pass catchers without a quarterback in large field stuff. Like it just, your chance of finishing the 1% does not come out. Use at least 1 wide receiver where ownership is less than 15%. Use at least 1 DST where ownership is less than 15%. I'm going to remove this rule for now. I am going to keep this for 15. Let's take a look if we go back to the optimizer and just make sure under wide receiver, scroll over here and find ownership. I think 15 is probably a good. Yeah, I think I did that cutoff because there was this chunk right here that I think the field will be condensed on. I think it's fine to have one of these: Justin Jefferson, Keenan Allen, Kirk, Tank Dell, really good salary cap relief there. So I could, dock Tank Dell if I wanted to get a little less of him in like big sets of lineups. But this 15%, I could technically do 23.06. I want one that's less than that to kind of make sure that I'm getting some of these wide receivers in here just to keep my product ownership down a little bit. So anyways, back down here to the lineups that we have. Let's just say these all look fine. And this is how I kind of start my process, is just looking over this, making sure that nothing's like super crazy here. You've got Amari and Chig, Deshaun Stack. You've got Mike Williams, Joshua Kelly. Now, something like this with and Madison, like I would end up creating a rule that would say at most 1 running back from this game. If I'm also going to get another pass catcher, you could play Madison and Kelly. I just don't know if you really want to play Madison, Kelly, and Mike Williams without the quarterback. In small field, something like this is probably fine. And this is where I'm going to do exactly what this is where I would normally do exactly what I'm about to do right now. I'm not going to mess with any of this stuff because to me, yeah, so here's a sick onslaught. I think an onslaught like that is fine, but your ownership, your product is fine because of the Dolphins, CD, Hawk, and KJ. Yeah, something like that seems fine. Once again, I'm trying to not immediately rule out these lineups because I want to sim them first. Now, for me, I'm going to sim these in the 444 for Mega Millionaire. Shout out 444 team, John Paulson, TJ. Because of 2 reasons. One, the field size in the FFWC stuff is 700 people, and all of these contests are first place or nothing. I mean, some of these $100 qualifiers are first place, you get your seat. Second place is $250. So it's first place or nothing. I'm not playing this to 1.5x my money. So the fact that this is 30% to first place, I also think makes sense. So we'll run. Let's take a look at what the sims give us. This should take not even 30 seconds to run this many lineups. All right, we're done with the sims. Like I said, not even 30 seconds. Couldn't even take a drink of water. So this is average sim ROI, median sim ROI. We can quick select here, grab top 20%, so on and so forth. I also really just like seeing the players that constantly show up in the average ROI. Now, keep in mind, these lineups against the field are more often than not going to look okay because optimize with the projections that the field is also using. I am optimizing with the field ownership that the contest lineups are also using. So like it's biased towards itself, right? So I think it's very, very important to keep that in mind. And so I'm not so much looking at this sim ROI and cash rate as like, okay, let me take this, let me grab a top one, boom, that's the play. It's more like, okay, Amari Cooper, average ROI 13%, T-Law, Christian Kirk, trying to take a look at like some of these lineups that make sense. And, you know, now maybe I can put some of the quote unquote, you know, do you know ball, I know better feel takes into this of just, yeah, I mean, this Chargers, Minnesota is a really great environment, but like, okay, let's take a look at this Lawrence, Mostert, Madison, Williams. Like, let's just take a quick look at this lineup. Mike Williams, Nico Collins, Jahan Dotson, like something like this. Okay, Tony Pollard, something like this kind of makes sense. So like what I start doing is I'll grab a couple of these lineups and I'll tag them and I'll just say, what was that, a T-Law? T-Law, review me. I'm going to save that and save that into my lineups here. And you'll notice my lineups just went from 8 to 9. Okay. And kind of, I already did a little bit of this to keep this video on the shorter side. So I would go through and I would take a look at more of these lineups. I would go back to my optimizer. I would start making some adjustments. Like I said, I might write a couple more rules based off what it was initially giving me and start to get to this larger pool of lineups that are pretty math-based, optimizing by ceiling, or maybe you want to optimize by projection and ceiling here, and maybe you want to go back under variance and like do a super high variance build. Just really starting to get that portfolio of lineups of 30, 40, 50, 100, whatever it is, and start whittling that down, if you will, to lineups that you like, that the math is also giving you confirmation bias on, because that's really what we're doing here, right? So I'm going to go to my lineups, and I've got a couple of these. And you can see, here's that tag, that T-Law review me one. But I want to show you some other lineups that I had already kind of done. Okay, so here's this larger field, King of the Beach. And I just mistagged that. This should be larger field FFWC. So let's actually say I got new information and I'm not that big of a fan of this lineup anymore for whatever reason. So let's edit it. So I'm just going to click edit on one of these players, and you'll notice it puts me up here in my single lineup editor. And it had Justin Jefferson in there, so let's just go back and you can see here it is. Now let's play with this a little bit. So we've got a T-Law double with a Tank Dell run back. Taking a look at the ownership over here, the T-Law stuff is okay, but like there's a part of me that's like, I feel like I'm eating a little bit too much chalk, but it's a smaller field contest, so maybe let's remove, let's just remove Tank Dell and see what it, actually, hold on, I want to show you. Let's put Dell back in and sim it in the same field. And I want to just take a look. Okay, 52 and 25. So let's just remember that. 52% ROI, 25% cash rate. This is where I really start to kind of use these numbers. Not so much of just saying like, okay, my expected ROI is 52%. Hooray. It's more like, now that I'm going to make some changes, let's remove Dell and let's remove Calvin and Justin Jefferson, and let's still get exposure to some of those games. So like, let's get Addison instead of Justin Jefferson. Let's get Nico Collins instead of Tank Dell. And now I've got 9,300 in the flex. That's a lot to work with. Can I get like a TP in there? Yeah, I can easily get Tony Pollard. I could obviously do Justin Jefferson. So I could do Justin Jefferson again, but there's no like Addison and Justin Jefferson. So let me get Tony Pollard, and then let's come up from defense just to start using some of the salary for sim purposes. We've got the Chiefs projection. I think their ownership was like fine. And now let's sim. Remember, it was 52 and 25, right? And let's just see what the sims say. Like, they don't necessarily like that nearly as much, and it's most likely due to us removing a little bit of that onslaught of Christian Kirk and subbing him out for Tony Pollard. Even though we got maybe a little bit of a higher ceiling play in Nico Collins, like, is it really a higher ceiling play? Let's take a look at the Houston Texans wide receivers. Oops, sorry. Nico Collins, Tank Dell. Let's take a look at these ceilings. Yeah, so the ceilings definitely have him as a higher ceiling play, but the sims don't like it as much. And so that's really kind of where I'm using like the single lineup simulator here, is to tell me, are these manual adjustments that I'm pulling the whole I know better, I know ball changes, are they actually really giving me a better lineup in a field that I'm simming? And you notice that I did say use the same field. So we can come in here and now let's move away from Zach Moss, and let's move away from Tony Pollard. Let's get back to Justin Jefferson in the flex, and let's go back down to a cheaper defense, and let's just grab the Panthers. I'm pretty sure they're like 2,400. Let's grab the Panthers, 2,600. And now I've got a $5,500 running back, which this is like, I think where the field is definitely going to condense on. And it's not a big deal. So like maybe here we want to go with Joshua Kelly. So now I've got Kelly, I've got Addison, I've got Justin Jefferson, I've got this T-Law single with the run back. And you know, maybe it makes more sense to remove Nico Collins and not do the single run back. So I've got Kirk from Jags. I mean, you would probably really want to try and get up to Ridley. I don't think it makes a whole lot of sense to like be taking Jamal Agnew here. So anyways, you can kind of see, I guess let's just take Dell or Nico Collins back in there and resim and run it again. So the first one was 50 and 25. The second one was 20 and 20. And now we're at 58%. So you can see like, okay, yeah, that doesn't make sense. And we kind of knew that building it. Like this lineup construction didn't make a whole lot of sense. But that's one of the ways that I would open up the solver, use all of the projections that we have here, use the sim that we have here, use all these tools and these rules. And then from there, what I would do is and you'll notice I did not update or tag or do anything to this. So let's just cancel, but you'll notice like in my lineups that larger field KOTB, it did not change. But now what I would do is under my entry manager, I would manage my entries. I would grab, that larger field king of the beach, and I would assign it to this world championship qualifier, or maybe this SATI right here, and hit replace. And now you'll notice I have that lineup right here under those entries in that SATI right there, that 1250 SATI. So that's only a 70-man field. So I think doing an onslaught makes a lot more sense there. And you'll notice in the entry managers, I've got more stuff here that I could then assign lineups to as well. So I could assign this larger field king of the beach to this king of the beach and hit replace. And I already had it, so that's why. But that's a great way to start assigning those lineups in your My Lineups that you have optimized, simmed, build rules for, and really started to fine-tune all of these lineups that you have. Say you've got 30, 40 in here and you're playing 10 lineups and across, 50 different contests. It's just a really great way. And then from there, you would just download the file right here, DK CSV, and go upload it to DraftKings. So absolutely love building in here. I think it's so great to be able to just hand build in the optimizer, in the single lineup optimizer. And one thing I didn't even show you, which I'll do probably Sunday morning, is you can upload custom columns right here. So just like I have ownership and ceiling, you can upload floor points. You can upload things like a metric that Ben Gretsch talks a lot about, your high value touches. You could upload target share. You could upload weighted opportunity rating. You could upload a player's yak if you wanted to. Like, it doesn't, you can upload any custom fields, and in the advanced settings, you can then create rules to use those stats by team. You could then create rules. They would show up where these say like projections, owner, salary, value. It would say high value targets. So I could say at least one running back where high value targets is greater than, 3 HVTs a game. And you can make sure that you're always using one running back where their high value targets are 3 or more per game. So it's a really, really great way to use the data that you like. Now, keep in mind, if you're using a premium projection source, like 99.9% of that stuff is all baked into the projection, but you want to feel like you are having a little bit of control over these lineups, still using the math. Absolutely love doing all of this. So that was a little bit of a lengthy one, but like we said, Saturdays are for the Sims. Drop a comment down below if you have any questions. I'm going to try and do these every Saturday, and that way we can start having a discussion heading into the slate. And yeah, with that, run good in week 3, y'all. Peace.